Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to finish out this week with our final black metal origins song, looking at the origins of black metal, or maybe even proto black metal, that came out in the early to mid 80s. Now, technically, this song did come out in the early 90s, but from what I understand, it took a while for the black metal music, that kind of proto black metal we've been checking out so far. It took a while for that to get to Asia. And this is a Japanese band, if I remember correctly, and I believe even though it came out in the 90s, they were still influenced from some of that first wave black metal stuff. So we're going to dive into this band. Is called Sigh or Sign. I'm not sure. This Wikipedia description has both names in it. It's called Sign Topic, that's the channel, but then in the description it says Sigh. On Wikipedia it says Sigh, so it's probably Sigh. But, just in case. I'm covering my bases, it might be Sign as well. Let's dive into this and see what these guys are bringing to the table. A little bit of a Baroque idea right here. Very fuzzy and compressed though. Very squashed as well.
Nothing can stop this painful, yeah.
It's so close to what I expected, but just slightly different. Little variations on a lot of ideas. But there's still so many connections to what we listened to this week. A lot of uses of fermatas, subtle tempo changes with accelerandos and retardandos. Very interesting. They went like almost pure atmosphere for the second half. I really like that fill. This song is all over the place, and I adore it. Okay, so yeah, I am going to. Before we get into anything, I am pretty sure that this sits a little closer to the second wave movement than the first wave. It does have some ideas in it that remind me of Bathory. So it's possible that they were influenced by Bathory, and that's kind of where my information came from, that they mostly were influenced from First Wave, and they just really pushed that on their own without having any influence from what would eventually be some of the early black metal we saw in the 90s. Because this is 93, well, January of 93. So there might have been some second wave that was already starting to come out that sounded like this. But again, it's possible it just hadn't reached that region yet, and they were creating this sound on their own. I'm not sure, but I do, without having heard any second wave yet, this I feel is different enough from what we've listened to this week that it probably doesn't technically fit under first wave. But it is interesting to see how it is a bridge between modern black metal and that first wave proto black metal that we've been checking out this week that feels somewhat closer to thrash. Or speed metal is a term that I saw in the comments yesterday, day before. Because technically, like I had mentioned previously, thrash hadn't come out yet. Thrash actually evolved from this movement as well. So speed metal, from what I understand, is the term that was being utilized at the time for this really fast playing. So right off the bat, we have something that we haven't seen at all this week, and that is Baroque style or Baroque style composition and instrumental variety. We have these I don't know, this lo-fi kind of MIDI sounding string. I don't even know if they're really MIDI, but that's kind of the vibe I'm getting from them. And I don't know if they had MIDI in the early 90s. But yeah, that's kind of the vibe. I don't know how they created it, but that's what I'm going to call them for the duration of this video. And it's super compressed, super squashed. It is just this tinny, narrow sound, but with this sort of Baroque classical guitar, like MIDI classical guitar. I think that's kind of what I get out of it. It has a brightness to it too, though, that kind of gives me like harp feelings, whereas acoustic guitars tend to have warmth to them. This is a cooler, brighter tone. So yeah, I'm getting kind of like a plucked, bright string instrument. I don't know. It could be a lot of things. There's millions of instruments out there. They all have different timbres and colors, and I can't always name them all. Mostly because I don't know all of them. There's a lot of instruments out there. Anyways, we start off with this really interesting idea, and I think it works beautifully. Just because, for whatever reason, I probably should look into this because I am curious. I think I've even brought it up before. Baroque music is associated with horror, with scary themes. We play a lot of Baroque music at Halloween time. You buy a Halloween album, a generic, scary music for the holidays kind of thing. And there's so much Baroque music on there. And I don't know, maybe it's just the organ. Maybe the organ's a scary instrument. Maybe pop culture, we've associated it with scary things. I don't know. For whatever reason, though, Baroque music has these haunted, evil, supernatural kind of vibes to them, and it works so well in tandem with black metal, especially since I kind of associate um, darkness to the thematic elements. I was gonna say satanic imagery, but again, like we've checked out on Wednesday and Thursday, it's not always true. They all do kind of tend to revolve around sort of the more macabre elements, but it's not always Satanism. But pairing this darkness, this macabre element with this Baroque music, I think works very well to both support and amplify the thematic atmosphere that black metal already creates, and just to provide some contrast to the screaming guitars that we hear all the time. Although I guess screaming doesn't really work here. Screaming's more like yeah. I don't know what would be what would is what is a good description of these really low, distorted, crunchy guitar sounds? Screaming is more like the higher pitched stuff that we hear in like guitar solos from hair metal or 70s metal. So yeah, I don't know if screaming really works here, but yeah, it's a good contrast from the really fast, crunchy guitars that we've heard all week. But it does so without losing that theme, that atmosphere, that power that I think black metal really has a fantastic time getting into that atmosphere. Then we get into the verse and possibly a chorus and maybe a post chorus. I don't know. It all kind of blurred together, and this is very indicative of what we've seen this week. The vocals are a bit harsher than I think we've seen, and I think this is why I kind of want to push into second wave, because a lot of the vocals we've listened to this week, Bathory aside, have been clean. They've been compressed, but they haven't really been harsh as yet. Not like black metal eventually becomes. They still have a lot of ties to that speed metal Motorhead sound, vocally, anyways. Um, But yeah, so we have the really fast guitar playing. What's interesting here, though, is that we have this tremolo playing, but instead of playing a root and then having a line at the end of a phrase to provide a little bit of contrast and difference, we actually have moving lines. They're playing one note per beat. They're changing the note every downbeat, and we're getting these really nice climbs. And I think it was every four repetitions, every three repetitions, so four times playing the same thing, they actually went to a different phrasing. Well, not a different a different melody line, I guess you could call it. The phrasing's the same. They're still doing tremolo picking, which I think it turns out to be 16th notes. They're still playing a different note on every downbeat, but they change which notes and which direction they're going. So there's more of a melodic element here that we didn't see in any of the stuff from the rest of the week so far that we've checked out, where a lot of that stayed on this root tone and was about the speed and aggression and brutality. This one actually has some melodic elements mixed in, which is a bit foreshadowed in from that opening Baroque piece, which was heavily melodic. We had two instruments that were creating a variety of dyads that were showcasing both chord progression and a sort of counterpoint going on there. So we have a group that seems to be focused on melody more so than the bands that came before them. And again, this is a huge important distinction. This is a drastic departure. This is the biggest departure that I think the band is showcasing from their predecessors. And of course, we see this get ramped up to 11 in the second half of the song when we aim for atmosphere. We actually slow down the speed of attacks. We're not playing tremolo picking guitar anymore. We're getting rid of these 16th notes. We're dropping down to eighths, quarters. I think there's even some whole notes in here in the background. There's it focuses on this atmosphere, and we introduce these MIDI strings, these synthesized strings. Yeah, maybe they're not MIDI. It's just old synthesizer strings. I don't know. And they're providing this I don't know, this enlightening, majestic sound behind the music. And we do this for a minute or two, and then we return back to the speed. But what's interesting is when we bring the speed back, we also bring back these strings going on in the background, and it really reminds me of bands, I think, like Dimmu Borgir, who do metal plus orchestras. I'm pretty sure it's Dimmu. And I can clearly see a line between Bathory to Sigh to Dimmu, and seeing this evolution of the sound. So again, that's another reason why I think this might be pushed into the second wave idea, is just because there is a stronger element of melody throughout. However, there's also, like I said, a lot of comparative aspects, especially when we look at like minute 1 to minute 2.5 or so, that speed metal section. We have the tremolo picking, we have the harsh vocals, we have the speed, we have the raw aggression, we have, all of it. It really does not quit while we're in that moment. And to me, that's the black metal moment, right? It's just sandwiched in between these elements of melody. And it's almost, the term gets thrown around a lot. I like to use it just as a shorthand, but proggy black metal. And proggy's just, it's another word for experimental for me. It's 2 syllables rather than 4, experiment, 5. But yeah, it's taking that black metal sound and trying to see what can go with it. What can we do with it? How can we push it? And I really like I mentioned, I really think that bringing in the Baroque music works phenomenally, just because the themes are already lining up as far as our pop culture goes, in the way that we're viewing both sounds, the black metal sound and the Baroque sound. And then later on, they bring in the strings in the background. And as we know now, I don't know how popular this was at the time, but metal music with strings behind it is huge. Nowadays we know that works very well. I don't know if it was so common there, but yeah, they were pushing this sound, and I really enjoy that. Plus, there's a lot of variety here. Like I said, there's that halftime atmospheric moment there, and for me, it helps the song breathe, right? One of the things that I don't think I've brought up, because I don't think it's meeting these songs on their own terms, is actually, I do think I brought it up once, where I said that the songs are a bit much for me, but the short time, the short length of these songs is, sort of a relief for me. But yeah, not even just the repetition, which is why I made that comment, but also just the raw intensity of them. We checked out a song from Crowless years ago, and it was sort of like this. Lots of tremolo picking, lots of fast playing. It had fast drums in it, but it was 19 minutes of it. And it drained me physically, mentally. I was tired at the end of listening to it. It is not something that I enjoy for long periods of time. So having these songs be a bit shorter works for me, because it really is draining for me to listen to this type of intensity for elongated periods of time. And something that I absolutely love here is that they kind of backed it off a little bit. They provided a moment to breathe, which is just perfect for me. They gave me that minute there in the middle of the track to kind of just enjoy the atmosphere and the vibe and the emotion that they're portraying with this sound before diving back into that speed and aggression. So, yeah, I really enjoyed that. Otherwise, I don't know that I have much else to add here. Um, it is sort of more of the same that we've checked out this week, and it is a genre that is not Very deep. I'm actually surprised I got as lengthy of videos as I did this week, given that there's not a lot of theoretical elements to talk about here. They all kind of sit in the same chord progression. Sometimes they just sit on the same chord. There's not a lot of movement in the melody, and it's really a percussive sonic style of music designed to evoke a specific feel and emotion and atmosphere. And if you're in for that, I mean, yeah, it's beautiful. I could see, if I'm in the mood for this and I want that raw aggression, it's going to deliver from start to finish every time. But aside from that sonoristic element of just creating a vibe and sticking with it, there really isn't a lot to talk about. And yeah, so I think I'm going to end this one here because I think I touched on everything. If you have more information about where this sits, please let me know. Like I said, I'm kind of leaning towards the fact this might technically be second wave black metal, but I do hear a lot of inspiration from Bathory. And maybe that connection is not strong enough to place it in first wave. Maybe it is truly second wave because it's an evolution of Bathory's sound. But I'm curious. Got to see if my information was correct on this one. Um, yeah, and if you have anything else to add, let me know. I don't know how big of a group this is, so hopefully, even if you are well versed in the origins of black metal, you're familiar with this era, maybe this is still a new band to you. Um, yeah, and leave any other comments you have as well. Above the comment section, there's a description box, and in there is a link to Linktree. Take you to this menu right here where you can do all sorts of things. You can follow me on Twitter, support the channel through Patreon, submit a special selection, pick up some merch, see what I've been making, see what I've been listening to, email me, all sorts of stuff. It's all in there above the description box. If you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. We got one more video coming out in about 7 minutes. It's our creator request. We have a metalcore group with harsh female vocals, I think is the description they sent me in the email. So I'm looking forward to that. That sounds like fun. That sounds like it's right up my alley, honestly. So if that sounds interesting to you or if that's your style of music, make sure you tune in for that. Otherwise, no videos over the weekend, but I will be dropping a new link to a live stream. That'll probably be Saturday, so it'll be the live stream 14. I'm trying to get caught up. We're a few behind, but I'm making progress. And then I'll be back on Monday with next week's theme, and I think it's vocal harmonies. I think that's what we're looking at next week. Yep, vocal harmonies. All right, so that's going to be on Monday, and then of course we'll do more special selections as well. All right, until next time, remember to be critical but not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.